So, the base of our plays tonight is Punta Falsa, which we just did and which I want to recap. And that's the play in which Fiore tells us to come with a mezzano and strike lightly to his blade and then bring the sword around to the other side, thus. And in. Okay, so that's the base play. The components we need for this play are slow. I strike a mezzano, not a fendente, but a mezzano. Drawing his parry wide, I want to come to the end of his sword so that I don't have much travel distance over that. I want to get opposition, so we obey Fiore's injunction to always enter under cover. And then I want to enter at that point. Okay, and face is target, chest is target, you know, whatever's available, really. Mask is convenient for us tonight because we can hit it pretty hard. Okay? So, with that in mind, there's something else I can do with this. I can use posta longa. Okay, posta longa is the most deceptive of all the guards, he tells us. Full of deceit and trickery, I love that. So I can use this to, for example, draw Luke's parry and come around differently. So in this case, I'm coming through. This time I am going with a fendente more towards the base of his sword. I'm drawing his parry out. And then I'm continuing the travel with a slight rotation of the hands. I bring it up, and I step in with opposition for that thrust. Okay, so all the same things are applied here. Now there is one slight difference between what I did here and the Punta Falsa. Did anybody pick it up?
Hands?
Slower foot fall. Slightly different.
Yes, there's a subtlety of timing there. That's one. So I should have said two, but that's good.
Location of the hands?
I'm a little bit out of range. Just a little out of range. Okay? The reason being, I'm going to have to get around those hands, right there. So, Luke don't defend. Luke cannot afford to ignore this right in front of his face here. Okay, but it is a little bit out of range. So he sees that coming and he knows he's got to pay attention to it, so he parries it. And that's when I am able to go around and come through with my thrust and opposition against his blade. Okay. So, the way I want to practice it is this. I want you to find your proper measure, which I can do right here, and I've struck. Back a loop. Don't stretch out your attack anymore, but now go ahead and cut, no defense. And you're a little bit short. But still, can he afford to ignore this? Nope. No. Okay. Now he'll go ahead and parry. Perceiving that, I simply do a cavazione, a two di volta, or full turn of the point below. I just continue the cut and come through with the thrust. So I have two steps on it. The initial step to set him up, and then the next step to drive through. Okay. Questions? Let's go ahead. We will sell the scene. Okay, so two things. One, subtleties of timing and step. If I'm striking to Luke, and please don't defend on this one, if I'm striking to Luke as I come through, I move very quickly through that, okay? And my timing of hand and foot as I come through is, as I accelerate the blade, I've got that foot going there too. In fact, you can see I can't even stabilize myself there because I still want to go forward. Here I am just a tiny bit changing that so that I wait till right about here and I'm a little bit later on that. So I've accelerated, and I haven't yet fully committed that foot, although I'm certainly still getting the hip around here. There's certainly plenty of power and drive still available to me, and he can't afford to ignore it. And he might not well pick up on the difference either. So by doing that, okay, he perceives the blade coming at him in a strong fashion before my body is quite as committed, and so when he commits his parry, I am fractionally farther back. It's only a little bit, but it's enough. The other thing I'm doing here is I'm not actually going full speed around. Okay? I actually slow it down a little bit. When you get here, you want to make sure that you have enough time and space to get around there. So you are just very slightly slowing your cut a little bit before that, drawing him a little bit further, and then you can get around. Okay? Similar to the Punta Falsa, where you're drawing him wide. You want to draw him strongly into that position so that you can then come around. Okay. So those are real subtleties, and they take a fair amount of time to master. But one of the things I want you to not do is rush through the drill at this point or get too close. You can master them better if you, first of all, set up your measure, no defense please, so that you know where you are. A little bit shy, but you still can't ignore that. And then, if I go ahead and slow the action down a little bit, then I can control it very, very well as I go through, and I can explore those subtleties of timing and distance. I can explore the timing at a slower speed very easily because timing is relative. If I'm going at, I don't have no idea what speed I'm going at. If I'm going 100 miles an hour at him, the relative timing is still the same as when I go 10 miles an hour at him. I have no idea if I throw a Fendente at 100 miles an hour, probably not. We'll have to time it sometime. Okay? Okay, so, and through. Okay. Questions? Yeah.
Can you turn your sword while you're dropping it down?
Oh, yes, it's an excellent question and an excellent point. Thank you very much. That's precisely what I'm doing. On the drop through, I'm making the turn.
It somehow helps make the clearance happen.
So here, I'm just going to stay static on the ground for a second. Like that. Notice around which point of the sword I'm turning. Our rotation point again. Thank you. It's a great question. I appreciate it. Okay. And through. So yes, I do get that turn in here. Yeah, thank you. Other questions? Because you see, we learn stuff when people ask questions. I learned stuff. Okay, great. Let's give it a shot. Iterate that I want us to start from the rear stance rather than the forward stance. Okay, I want us to really focus on the rear stance for a while so that we can develop our Fendente mechanics. That's going to tie into the body mechanics that we're using here. So you remember a moment ago I arrested my motion partway through when I accelerated the sword? I want you to see what my body looks like as I do that. Okay, so here I am, square and stable and upright coming through. Okay, like that. What I want to avoid is leaning into it and pulling my hips behind, which sometimes happens. So I want to make sure that when I travel, what's traveling forward is this platform right here, there, with everything above it just along for the ride. Okay? So that as I come through and I get to that point, I'm nice and stable when I decide to make my action and go through. Okay? If I'm leaning into it, I have to overdo this. If I'm leaning into it, it's hard for me really to control getting around because I don't have a stable platform. I'm leaning, I'm having to balance too many things at one point. But if I come in from a stable platform, it's pretty easy to get through. Okay, so that's thing one. We can use that in the next exercise. Let's actually rotate. Because we're just going to change target a little bit. So instead of going through with a thrust, we're going to go ahead and go through the cut. Okay. Now, the thing that's changed a little bit here is the timing and the distance of the step slightly. So as I come through, the timing is such that I want to drop the cut as I'm landing my foot. Okay? So I'm going to come a little high so I can emphasize that without actually smacking your arm. So as I come through, I want that to hit. And then of course at that point I should be on his arm and then I should run him through. So not only is he not at an arm, I'm going to perforate it. So slow motion. Okay. Again, cut lands with foot. Cut lands with foot because that will make you a one-handed sword. It's not good. Slight delay in the rear leg timing so I can land those two together like that. Okay. And then follow on through. So to practice that, I'd like you to move very slowly, coming through, trailing your leg a bit like that, and bringing it through there. It's close enough to the actual mechanic that I think you'll get the timing, and then we can gradually speed it up. In reality, as I do it faster, my leg is actually traveling rather than hovering back there, but that gives you the sense of the timing. So I can land him. So really, as soft as I'm doing right now, tying those two together. Okay. So, land that cut, step on through. I want you to practice at this speed first. So that when you set the sword on them gently, nobody has any reason to complain. Questions? Let's go ahead. Okay, so now another variation, and this bears some resemblance to Punta Falsa. They all bear the resemblance in that they are designed to draw an action that they then deceive. Okay, so there's that family resemblance, and there are, of course, resemblances in the timing and measure of the actions. But this one looks a little bit more like it directly. So as I come through, I want to draw his parry, but I want to get up top of it. Okay? I want to get to the end of his blade, okay? Get his blade out there so that I can just quickly go over it. I don't need much contact, I just need him to move that direction. A little contact is just fine. And there I go. If I get too deep on his blade, and frankly that last one was borderline. Okay? If I get too deep on his blade, it's too much time for me to get around. So I really want to be on the weak of his blade as I come over. Now again, note the timing of this. I'm doing it all in a single step. So it's very similar to the timing that we used in the previous one, except instead of going under with the cut, we are now going over. So again, the slow-mo version, as I drive forward, okay, the leg trails just a little bit more than it might ordinarily if I were going directly to target or infrasata. And then in that time, comes over. So it's a subtlety of timing. It's the difference. I'm not actually going to go all the way, go full way. It's the difference between this, where I'm going to the target, versus this, where I'm feinting to the target. Okay? So it's a little subtle thing. Position of hip, distance of step, that gives me that. So again, and then I come through. Again, if I get a little contact on his blade, that's fine. No problem there. Okay. But if I get hard contact on his blade, that means that I'm late. Thinking in terms of other actions. So if I've gotten in here where I have a hard contact, then I've got to start thinking in terms of other actions at this point. Okay. So if I get a hard contact, I'm not going to try to go around, or at least I hope I'm not going to try to go around. So again, the slow version to start with. I'm not raising my hands for big opposition because that really interrupts my cut, but I am closing on this side towards his blade. I don't really have to reach his blade. I've just got to angle and close the line on that side to prevent any easy access back. Actually, I meant to do it a little bit slower. Let's do it one more time. So, there. One more time. Whoops. All right, you have to be near the end of this blade. Okay, you have to be near the end of this blade. Ideally, like this. This is okay because you're still clearing the same amount of blade, but this is best right here. Absolute shortest time. Okay. All right, questions? Go ahead. Okay. So, which of these do I use? The answer is, it depends. It depends a lot on the opponent's disposition and what they like to do. If you've got somebody who likes to do hard parries, okay, so they really like to drive for those parries, I would tend to do that to somebody who seriously overcommits, okay, right there. If you've got somebody who's pretty controlled and fairly tight in their parries, try to draw them out a little bit and go for something like that, there. So you can get quickly over their blade, and notice that I'm doing it at a fair distance. Because again, as I strike that blade, I'm not very committed in terms of distance here. Okay, so he's going to have a little bit of time to reach me. So that's two sort of broad categories that I would use there. What I'd like us to do now is add another option. We've got the two, we can go under and strike the arm or thrust through. I'm going to limit it. Under and thrust, or over and thrust. The first one and the last one that we did, just so we've got those two options. But I'm going to add one more possibility in here, okay? And you'll find this very interesting. I'm going to sometimes go for the cross and play from there. Sometimes I'm not feigning, and he doesn't know when. Okay? So we'll do these. I'll do, first round, I'll do 10 in a row, and I'll vary it as much as I can. Okay? Set things up. So I want to see if I can make him buy these different things. See if I can make him buy the different things and play off of them as we go through. He doesn't know which one I'm doing at any given point unless I start telegraphing at which point he can pick up on it. Okay, and if you do see somebody where you know it's obvious what the next one they're going to do is, tell them so that they understand that. Questions? Okay, let's go ahead. Thank you.